The topic that we'll be treating in this module is the legal, ethical, and contemporary issues in sports management. So, we've been able to justify the course well enough with different topics that are very important and essential for this course. And we've treated so many topics under this course, which I believe we have understand to some appreciable extent. However, for this module, we'll be looking at legal, ethical, and contemporary issues in sports management. And we have the content of the module to be one. We will look at the legal, ethics, and contemporary issue. We will try to explain and introduce ourselves to that. What does it mean? After addressing that, we'll move on to legal issues in sports management. This means that we'll be picking this one after the other. We looked at the legal issues in sports management, the ethical issues in sports management, and the contemporary issues in sports management. We'll try to justify and address this well enough. Then after that, we'll move on to the intersections and future implications, which is another important subtopic under this course. After that, we'll move to sports betting or gambling. That's a topic on its own under sports management. Then under that, we move under sports management and sports betting and gambling. We look at the pros and cons. Also look at doping, match fixing, and anti-corruption measures in sporting and betting, sports betting and gambling. Then after that, the next subtopic that we'll be looking at under this module is gender equity, inclusion, and diversity in sports. Then after that, we'll move on to recent developments in sports locally, and also recent developments, emerging trends, which can also be called the recent developments in sports globally. So in these emerging trends, we'll be looking at this main aspect. We like the following aspect: the esports, technology, sustainability, and the VAR impact in sports activity or esports events, in different sports events, let's put it that way. And now we have the introduction of the module of this module to be that when we are talking about the field of legal, ethical, and contemporary issues in sports management, it is known to mainly address the complex interplay between regulatory frameworks, moral responsibilities, and evolving societal expectations in the sports industry. Key concerns under this subtopic include the following, which are sports betting and gambling. And the sports betting and gambling have proliferated through digital platforms that and also offer convenience and economic opportunities. But at the same time, it raises significant moral and legal issues such as addiction risks, match fixing, vulnerabilities, underage access, and integrity threats to competitions. Similarly, we also have doping, match fixing, and anti-corruption measures remain persistent challenges, with global bodies enforcing stricter testing protocols and integrity programs to preserve fair play, while ethical debates center on athletes' health, coercion, and the erosion of trust in sports. Gender equity, inclusion, and diversity have gained momentum, pushing for equal opportunities, pay parity, and representation across genders, ethnicities, and abilities, though barriers like discrimination and underfunding persist in many regions under this. So this is what I'm trying to establish here in this introduction, is that all the subtopic that we are going to treat under this module, has been used to introduce us to different things that is happening when we are talking about the legal, ethical, and contemporary issues in sports management that is happening. Sports is not just, apart from the fact that sports is there to entertain the audience and also serve as a multi-billionaire revenue for the country, and also a means of promoting unity in the world. Apart from that, there are also some other challenges and which brought about the legal and ethical and contemporary issues in sports management that used to occur. These include in the area of betting, match fixing, betting. In the area of betting, we could face some challenges like addiction risk, match fixing, underage access. In this technological area where we have almost everybody have access to phones and technology. They can easily access to this online betting platform like Sportybet, OneXBet, and the likes, even without reaching the minimum age, which is 18 years. So this is what we are going to be mainly addressing and looking at in this module. So now, what do we refer to as legal, ethics, and contemporary issue? Now, when we are talking about that, sports management operates at the intersection of business law, as the intersection of business, law, ethics, and culture, which makes it a field fraught with complex challenges. Legal issues arise from contractual, regulatory, and liability frameworks that govern athletes, teams, leagues, and governing bodies. So ethical issues stem from moral questions about fairness, integrity, and human welfare in a high stakes, just like we know what ethics implies. So ethical issues in sports management now is stem from moral questions about fairness, about asking questions about is integrity, players' integrity, is the match fair enough, all those kind of things. While contemporary issues often blend the two, driven by rapid societal, technological, and economic changes. Together, if we wrap this together, that is the legal, ethics, and contemporary issues, together, these dimensions require sports managers to balance profit motives, competitive imperative, and public expectations while navigating evolving legal standards and ethical norms. Now, let's pick it one after the other. We'll be looking at legal issues in sports management before we move on to the ethical issues in sports management and contemporary issues in sports management. Now, let's pick legal issues in sports management first. When we're talking about legal issues, they are the challenges in sports management. They are known to be diverse and often high profile, in the sense that contract disputes frequently dominate, as seen in player and team conflicts over salary, trade clauses, no trade provisions, and termination rights. Antitrust law plays a significant role, particularly in professional leagues where collective bargaining agreements and revenue sharing models can be challenged as restraint of trade. So let's pick this legal issue or legal challenges in sports management. It is very diverse and often a high profile, something that usually happen. Contract disputes, for instance, frequently dominate this legal issue. We could see the case of a good example. Let me pick two examples actually. We have the case of Victor Osimhen with Napoli. Currently, Victor Osimhen is playing for Galatasaray, but with Napoli, he had some legal issues with them in terms of salary, trade clauses, and all, and even he requested that he had to be sold. Although Napoli tried all their possible ways to make sure he was sold for a huge amount of money to the Arab League, which he declined until he was later signed by Turkey, by the Turkish giants, which is Galatasaray. Another good example is the Kylian Mbappe and the Paris Saint-Germain issue. That's the PSG in France. So Mbappe was offered a huge contract during the because they didn't want him they didn't want him to go to Real Madrid, which he was actually dreaming of. He was offered a huge amount, and he decided to further signed his contract for a further additional 2 years. Immediately after the 2 years, he went on a free transfer to Real Madrid for a better option. So let's put it this way, for his dream. Yes, but on the other hand, he had contract issue with Paris Saint-Germain, in which they had to take themselves to court. I mean, Kylian Mbappe and the whole PSG on the as a club, they had to take themselves to court over a contract issue and money, which he later won, Kylian Mbappe. So now, these are some kind of legal issues that we can actually see in sports management. And the trust law plays a significant role, particularly in professional leagues where collective bargaining agreements and revenue sharing models can be challenged as restraints of trade. Intellectual property rights, trademarks, broadcasting rights, and sponsorship agreements generate massive revenue, but also litigation when it is infringed, just like the case of Kylian Mbappe that we made. When it is infringed, it will also result to great loss. So liability for athletes' injuries, especially concussions and long-term health effects, has led to landmark settlements. Example of this is NFL concussion litigation. Doping, on the other hand, doping violations fall under both civil and criminal law, with organizations like the WADA, that's the World Anti-Doping Association, enforcing strict liability rules. Title 9 in the United States and similar equity laws globally mandates gender equality in educational sports programs. These are different legal issues that we are facing in the world, and creating ongoing compliance and litigation pressures from university athletic departments. Now let's move on to the ethical issues in sports management. When we are talking about ethics, we believe we should understand what ethics is. It has to do with the integrity, fairness, and the proper doing the proper thing, as in different field of study. Now, ethical dilemmas in sports management, it's often centered on integrity, just like we have mentioned initially. Not only integrity, but exploitation and fairness, corruption, match fixing, bribery, and illegal gambling undermines the core principle of fair competitions. These things has definitely have undermined the principle of fair competition, that is corruption. Match when you are trying to fix match as a club, if being caught, it is a great offense. Now, the exploitation of athletes, particularly in revenue generating college and amateur sports, it raises questions about competition, education, and long-term welfare versus institutional profit. Discrimination is also an important thing when we are talking about the ethical issues in sport. We should not discriminate. There should be equality. There should be equality. So when there is discrimination, which is mostly based on race, gender, sexuality, or disability, it persists. It definitely persists despite progress, with managers facing ethical obligations to promote inclusions. A good example of this discrimination issue that is just the recent incident between in the UEFA Champions League match between Benfica and Real Madrid away in Portugal at Benfica, so where we have a player with number 25, Pierre racially abusing a Real Madrid player, Vinicius Junior, when he scores and celebrated with the flag and danced. So racially abusing, although this incident has been a recurring issue in the sports in the sports world. Let's put it that way, in the sports world. However, the UEFA and FIFA are trying to curb it as much as possible, in which they are an investigating committee has been created to actually investigate the issue between the incident. This is to show how the kind of ethical issues that we are facing when we are talking about sports management here. So performance. Let's move on to performance enhancing drugs, which is otherwise known called doping. This doping poses an ethical quandary, whether the pursuit of excellence justify health risk and unfair advantage. Sports managers must also grapple with the ethics of commercialization, aggressive marketing, sponsorship by controversial industries like gambling, alcohol, and the likes, and the pressure on youth athletes to prioritize winning over well-being. Now, let's move on to the contemporary issues in sports management. These issues reflect broader societal shifts and often match local and ethical concerns. The name, image, and likeness, that's NIL rights for college athletes, legalized in the US in 2021 and evolving rapidly, have transformed amateurism, creating new legal complexity around contracts, collectives, and transfer portals. Transgender and intersex athletes' participation has sparked intense debates over fairness, inclusion, and competitive integrity. Also, now mental health awareness has also grown with athletes like Simeon Biles, highlighting the ethical duty of organizations to prioritize welfare over performance. And the welfareism of the players and athletes is very essential than the performance, so and it should be prioritized more. The rise of esports introduces novel issues around governance, player contracts, and ethical risk from sedentary competition. Gambling legislation in many jurisdictions has heightened concerns about integrity and addiction, while climate change prompts scrutiny of the environment's impact of mega events and travel. Finally, social media also, these are contemporary issues in sports management. Social media also amplifies activities. For instance, we have athletes protests on social issues and amplifies activity, forcing managers to address free speech, sponsorship conflicts, and reputational risk. Now, let's move on to the intersections and future implications. When we have legal, ethical, and contemporary issues in sports management are deeply intertwined, it is says that with one often precipitating the others. A doping scandal, for instance, trigger legal sanctions, ethical condemnation, and calls for policy reform. This to show how much these three sections, that is the legal, ethical, and contemporary issues, these three issues are how much they are more intertwined in nature and interwoven. Now, sports managers must adopt proactive, principled approaches, robust compliance programs, ethical training, stakeholders engagement, and adaptive governance to navigate these challenges. As globalization technology, the reforms movements continue to reshape sports, the field will The field will demand leaders who can uphold both the letter of the law and the spirit of fair play. What we are trying to achieve in this is just a matter of achieving fair play. So, and by also looking at these different issues that do occur in sports activity or sports events, in sports arena, let's put it that way. Now, sports betting or gambling. What do we call sport betting? It is also known as gambling or sports gambling otherwise, and it is the activity of predicting the outcomes of sporting events and placing a monetary wager on these predictions with the potential to win or lose money based on the accuracy of the prediction. It has to do with 50-50 prediction, predicting the outcome of an event. We have different sporting platforms like Sportybet, just like we can see the logo down there. The Sportybet, Bet9, 1xBet, Betano, Naira Bet, all these kind of betting platform with different options like home to win, away to win, over 1.5, over 2.5, and this also team to score 2 goals, to score 1 goal, 10 minutes. These are different ways, options in when we are talking about sport. It is just about predicting the outcome of sporting events actually, and placing a monetary wager on this prediction with the potential to win or to lose. It is a 50-50. So in Nigeria, sport betting is legal and tightly regulated at both federal and state levels. Just of recently, I think about 2 days ago, that's 19th of this month, the Lagos State federal government issued a tax, this thing that every ticket won by a gambler or a person that is a gambler, let's put it that way, a gambler, the federal government or the Lagos State has access to withdraw 5%. Such person has 5% tax to pay from the money won. This is to show the level at which it is mostly generally recognized at the federal level and even at the state levels. So the primary regulatory body law, sorry, the primary regulatory body is the National Lottery Regulatory Commission, as the NLRC, established under the National Lottery Act of 2005, which oversees licensing, operation, and compliance for sports betting operators. Sorry about that. Now, popular platforms in Nigeria include Bet9, Sportybet, BetKing, and international giants like the Bet365 and 1xBet, which offer mobile apps, live betting, and cash out features. So these platforms have exploded in popularity due to high mobile penetration and widespread interest in football. We have in football, which could be, for instance, English Premier League and Nigerian Professional Football League (NPFL). Now, pros and cons in sports betting. So the pros of sport betting include economic contributions, generating tax revenue, just like the instances that I just mentioned about the 5% saga for government infrastructure and youth programs and entertainment value. Cons are significant also, which has to do with the addiction leading to financial ruin, which could lead to financial ruin when you are too addicted, mental health issue, and family breakdown. In Nigeria, where youth unemployment is high, many young people view betting as a quick path to wealth. You see people putting 100 naira to win at 35 million, 70 million. They see it as an avenue to quick path to wealth, resulting in widespread losses. Also creates jobs. Sorry about that. Now, this also creates jobs in tech, marketing, and customer service. Globally and in Nigeria, the industry supports sports sponsorship. Now, the moral and legal concerns revolve around exploitation of vulnerable populations, promotion of greed, and links to crime, like money laundering. Now, let's move on to the rules, moral, and legal concern. Sport betting and gambling, while increasingly popular and legalized in many parts of the world, including Nigeria, has raised significant rules, moral, and legal concerns. Rules in sports betting refer to the structured regulations and guidelines governing how betting operates, including licensing requirements and the likes. This has to do with just we know what rules are. This has to do with rules on how different betting platforms should operate and the do's and don'ts that different betting platforms should abide with. Now, we have that critics also argue that gambling promotes get rich quick mindset that undermines hard work, discipline, and stewardship principles. So, which often rooted in cultural and religious teachings prevalent in Nigeria legal concerns, which and also encompass the broader framework of legality, enforcement challenges, and risk to sports integrity, such as match fixing and addiction as public health issues. While sport betting is permitted in Nigeria, including different online platforms, the post-2024 shift to state-level control has created a patchwork of rules, leading to confusion and uneven enforcement. Now let's address the topic, this subtopic: doping, match fixing, and anti-corruption measures. So doping in sport, I believe we have addressed it and introduced ourselves to what it is. In sport, it is the use of prohibited substance or methods by athletes to artificially enhance performance, violating the principle of fair play and health. When you dope, it means you have automatically violate the principle of fair play, and including health, which is a civil law and even a criminal law generally. Include anabolic steroids, blood doping, and gene doping as outlined in the World Anti-Doping Agency (WADA). So anti-corruption measures are comprehensive frameworks to detect, prevent, and punish these violations. A good example of this doping, a player that this doping issue has occurred to, is the likes of Mudryk. Yes, Mudryk, that was bought from, I think that was bought to Chelsea for a huge amount of money, more than 100 million. He was found guilty of doping and he has been banned for several years. Another good example is the issue of Paul Labile Pogba, who failed doping tests while at Juventus after leaving Manchester United, and was banned for 4 years before just of recent he just got back to playing football back again. These are the measures. These are showing the kind of measures that is being taken when we are talking about doping and match fixing. And in the case of match fixing, we have players like Douglas Luiz of Aston Villa then, who was charged of match fixing and playing bets and engaging in bets, whereby it was investigated that most of his friends and family, they usually play bets on him to collect yellow card, in which he usually gets on the pitch whenever the family and friends place these bets. So this has to do with match fixing, in which it was properly investigated and he was also penalized. Now let's move to gender equity, inclusion, and diversity in sports. So when we are talking about gender equity in sports, it has to do with a fair, equitable treatment of individuals, regardless of gender, and ensuring equal opportunities, resources, pay, and recognition. Historically, sports have been male-dominated. While just of recent in this generation, with women facing barriers in funding, media coverage, and facilities. The Title IX in the UN's 1972 mandated equal opportunities, inspiring global changes. Examples include the growth of women's football that we can see just in different clubs in the world now. They have their own women football team. FIFA increased women's football cup prizes significantly, and initiatives like the Paralympics promoting disability inclusion. In Nigeria, efforts focus on female athletes in track and field, like Tobi Amusan, Asisat Oshoala, and the likes, though challenges like cultural biases limit participation in Nigeria. That's in Nigeria. Now, recent developments in sports locally, let's look at that. When we are talking about recent developments in sports, these reforms, achievements, and major events in Nigeria, 2025 in Nigeria marked a sports rebirth, with athletes winning a record 373 medals internationally, contributing 1.2% to GDP. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu also approved a comprehensive funding reset from 2026, overhauling mechanism for viability, backed by the National Sports Commission (NSC). Reforms and increased budgets. This aims to leverage private investments and position Nigeria competitively ahead of events like the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Globally, 2026 is unprecedented. The Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina, ongoing in February 2026, also face doping controversies, while preparations intensify for the expanded FIFA World Cup across North America. The sports economy grew to $2.3 trillion, driven by professional leagues, participatory sports, and goods. Now, we are on the emerging trends. That is the contemporary. When we are talking about contemporary this thing in globally, and that are emerging. Now we have the esports, technology, sustainability, and VR impact. Esports is just electronic sports, and it is organized competitive video gaming, often with professional leagues, teams, and massive audiences. While VR, on the other hand, that's video assistant referee, is a technology using video footage to assist on field referees in football decisions, especially in the case of goal, offside, and red card. So VAR, which was introduced in 2018-2019 season. Now, trends in 2025-2026 is esports integrates with traditional sports, e.g., virtual tournaments. Technology market hits billion with with a injury prevention. Now, you can see, just like we can see in the image below, the where we have referee going to check the video assistant referee VAR to actually decide what is going on, probably if it is going to be a red card, a goal, or an offside. Now, in conclusion, the landscape of sports management is defined by an intricate and evolving interplay of legal frameworks, ethical imperatives, and contemporary challenges that demand vigilant, principled leadership. From the regulated yet contentious growth of sport betting in Nigeria, which is marked by economic benefits, addiction risk, and ongoing regulatory reforms, and to persistent global threats like doping, match fixing, and corruption, the industry, that is the sports industry, must uphold integrity while navigating